once I see fetal position, this fight's done. Once I see that you have curled into a ball, the fight's over now. I will just unload till the ref stops it. So people can see like, oh yeah, if you get someone in their back, like don't be in such a position to roll off to the side, look for like hand trapping systems, like fucking belly them out and just slap the shit out of them. It's cool.
What's the most efficient path to victory against this particular opponent?
He's dropping off for the choke here. We could see the finish. It's looking tight. Tight at Delbra.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Everyday Jiu Jitsu podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kwan. The Everyday Jiu Jitsu podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu Jitsu. Today I have with me my good friend, Jamie the Gremlin Siraj. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Thanks for having me on, brother. Happy to be on here.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. I've been meaning to have you for a while. Guys, before we talk shop today with Jamie, please like, share, subscribe. Check out the links in the bottom if you want to support the show. All your support is appreciated. So Jamie's a pro MMA fighter. He's a good buddy of mine. We've trained many times. His record's 11-2. And Jamie, you are slated for a big matchup in the next couple of days here. In fact, you might have already fought by the time that this episode comes out. Your opponent is a gentleman named Nemat Abdrashatov. And yeah, again, you are by far one of the highest level MMA fighters in Vancouver, black belt, very, very good grappler. You're coming off of victory. I believe you were in Vegas, right? Against a Sambo world champion and strangled him out, choked him out from the back. Is all of that seem correct to you?
Yeah, no, I took one fight after that. I fought for Battlefield on the last card. I stepped up like last minute and I fought that David Briones. I stepped up 155. So I fought him. But I mean, yeah, in my weight class, the Vegas fight, fights that the last fight was kind of weird because it was like I had no motivation to do it. But I was like, well, I technically am free that week, so I guess we'll do it.
You just wanted to stay active, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to keep going. But like in hindsight, I probably, just knowing what I'm capable of, like I probably should have just sat out. And I mean, it's another win on the record, but at the end of the day, like it wasn't my best performance. Even though like it was a pretty dominant performance, I was just like, my heart really wasn't in it, and I just didn't feel enough threat and stress with my opponent. And yeah, kind of just showed in my performance. So it was just kind of going through the motions a bit. But yeah, my fight before that in Vegas, I was A1 happy about. So yeah.
That's funny. I totally forgot about the fight with Briones. As you had mentioned, it was kind of like, I don't know, just for fun, that fight. It was just kind of like you were, I may be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, for those who don't know, you have a medical history that had you sidelined for a couple of years, almost killed you, like an autoimmune issue. Obviously, we're going to talk about that a little bit, but I think you were probably just like, well, fuck, I'm healthy. I'm not doing anything on that day. So like, who knows what life has in store? All those times you had to sit out, your heart was probably just telling you, no, just go fucking fight. Just go do it because you can right now.
100%, man. That was literally the thought process behind it. I was like, well, I'm going to be there because I got to corner Radley. I don't really have to cut weight. It's not really much of an excuse. So I guess we're doing it. And then I'd like stayed in shape throughout the year, but it was definitely like one of those things where I was just like, yeah, fuck. Literally the mindset was just got nothing else better to do. So yeah, I took it. And yeah, I mean, it paid off. I got a W. He's a big fucker that I had to move around. It's a lot of weight to move around in there. He's a massive dude. But I mean, yeah, the fight went my way, all 3 rounds I won. Got put in a triangle early, got out of it. Yeah, he's trickier than I thought, but also I did maul him.
Yeah, so no, you did. Now that you bring that up, that's funny. I totally even forgot about that fight. And of course, like Adam fought that guy and demolished him too. I feel like Briones' game is like, he's got some subs from the guard. That's kind of what makes him dangerous, right? Is his subs from the guard. But as long as you're careful about that, it's he seems pretty predictable as a fighter. And so, was it hard for you to prepare for that match? Like not really caring too much about it, or knowing that it's not really like. It's not even in your weight class, How do you approach a fight like that? I feel like for an MMA fight, you kind of have to be all in, right? You have to really be thinking about that next opponent.
Yeah, well, it was kind of weird too because I didn't really prepare for it. Like I
came in
trained,
fat
like,
and just
I was lifting some weights around that time. So I looked in better shape than I feel like I was. Like, like I had abs. So people were like, oh, damn. And I was like, yeah, I did like one sparring day, like a couple hard grappling sessions. And then I was just like, because I was told like 2 weeks before about the fight. And then I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? Like, go kill myself, like, for something that's coming up in 2 weeks? Like, I can't even get in better shape, really, in 2 weeks. And then I got to deal with the fight week. So I kind of just, it was just a lot of going through the motions with that fight. My heart really wasn't in it. But, I mean, it paid off and I won. So at the end of the day, it is what it is.
What do you know about your upcoming opponent, Nemat Abdrashitov? I think I said that right. What do you know about him?
He's really heavy-handed. He has a really good win streak going right now, so there's a lot of momentum. He's also the Brave FC featherweight champion, so it's a really good win on paper. On paper, I would say it's my hardest fight so far in my career, but I feel like I fought better guys. I feel like I fought people that are better at striking. I fought people that are better at grappling. But I feel like with him, he may be the most athletic guy that I've ever fought. He's very dangerous. He's very explosive. He hits very hard. So even when I feel like I'm technically better than him in every area, just guys like that are annoying. It's like that annoying wrestler that comes in the gym, when you're coming in for a grappling day. It's like, I'm going to submit you eventually, but this is going to be annoying until I get there. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's kind of how this fight's going to go. Like, I feel I'm so technically ahead of him. I feel like I have a better understanding of every range when it comes to the striking, the boxing distance, the Thai distance, the Greco, the freestyle, top, bottom, understanding how to use my leverage. I feel like he fights a lot of guys that allow him to look better than he is because they don't understand when they get him on his back, they are not keeping like his back on the mat. They're allowing all this space for him to turn and hand fight up. And I just feel like until you've grappled with someone like me while I'm punching you, it's really hard to comprehend how heavy and how damaging my style is. So I just feel like he has a pretty hard puzzle to figure out when we get in that cage. I feel like I'm going to be too strong, too technical. I feel like I'm going to be able to use his athleticism against him, watch him expose his back. If I get on his back, I'm going to pound the shit out of him, or I'm going to choke him if he gives me his neck. So, yeah, I feel like as dangerous as he is and as world class as he is, I feel I have the game to really exploit him and make it look easy.
Mm-hmm. And this is going to be at 145?
Yeah, it's for the 145 title for Tuff N Uff. So they really liked what they saw my last time out. I feel like it was a bit of I feel like that fight in Vegas was like just the best fight for me in the sense of I fought a really world-class opponent that I wasn't supposed to go in there and beat. I feel like a lot of people thought I was going to lose that fight. and to be able to survive a storm like I did and change the momentum that quickly and then turn that second round into a very dominant round for myself. I feel it really did put me on the map as far as, you know, when it comes to prospects all over the world, because I know that guy there was scouts that were there just for him. I know that for a fact. And I feel like I surprised a lot of people. And then Tuff N Uff, they didn't even really give me an option as far as like when they presented me the fight, they told me, they're like, yeah, we want you in a title fight, you know. So I feel like they're pretty happy with me as a fighter and wanting to build my brand. And honestly, they're one of the best promotions to fight for. You know, Sean Shelby and Dana White sit right there for their fights. So I mean, can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, I mean, you beat a huge name, Sambo world champ, and you showed how tough you are, how resilient you are. You were in some trouble in that fight, and then you came back and you submitted him, right? So you know, it shows that you're not just tough, but you're skilled. You got submissions, you can finish fights. Pretty awesome. So I wanted to talk to you about ground and pound because I've grappled you, and every time I grapple with you, I'm like, fuck, man, if this guy could punch me right now, like this would be fucked. Like I'd be getting mauled right now, you know? And I'm just like, thank God we're just doing jiu-jitsu. Even though we kind of we're pretty much around the same size. I don't think I could ever make 145, but like when I roll with you,
it's hard for me too, brother.
I don't know how you're just like, no, I'll just starve and just do it until it works. Right. Like,
yeah, man, it's not out of, it's not out of happiness, man. I can tell you that.
I get that. But like I was saying, when I grapple with you, like you don't feel like you're 145. Like you feel very strong. And like I said, the ground and pound, you're pretty much known for like being able to out wrestle guys, take them down, beat the fuck out of them, and either finish them by submission or TKO, right? So the majority of the episode I wanted to discuss about ground and pound and how you approach the game of ground and pound as an MMA fighter. But before we do that, man, let's talk about like your story over the last couple of years, just because, you know, I'm somebody who's suffered from autoimmune issues as well. If you've never had an autoimmune issue, it is devastating. Like it can totally end your career. It can totally change the course of your life. And the sad part is that just with Western medicine and how it goes, there's no real cure or even feasible treatment aside from suppressing your immune system and just kind of coping with symptoms. And so I feel like, you know, a lot of people out there, who have autoimmune issues, and there is more and more people every year, more and more people are discovering they have autoimmune issues that manifest in different symptoms. I've done a whole episode on it. I think it was episode 7. And most people, the majority of people, never get relief. They never get to have control of their life again, right? And it's one of those things where you don't really appreciate it until you get that control back, and then you realize, like, holy shit, like it's almost like I've been reborn. Can you just, you know, tell us your story with how you became ill, you know, being one of the most up and coming fighters in your weight class in the world, and then all of a sudden your career is totally in jeopardy?
Yeah. Well, it kind of started where I noticed something wasn't really right with me when it was after my last fight. I fought this guy, Blake Sigvaldason, in Victoria, and then I won that fight in like 30 seconds. But I remember like the week after the fight, I was just sitting down one day and I got this like surge of vertigo that I just could not, like, I was like out of nowhere, just felt like I started panicking because I'm like, my head is so dizzy. I took like no shots in the fight, nothing. And I was fine like all throughout the week. So it just started with some vertigo. And then it was like vertigo for like 2 or 3 months. So then I started kind of looking at like, oh, this might be some post-concussion symptoms or something. And I mean, I didn't really have a shot that hit me in the head. that I was like, oh, but that's just what I assumed. It was like, you become Dr. Google's a scary guy, right? So, just started kind of going down that rabbit hole. And then I can't even like explain it. So it was like during the start of COVID, I woke up one day and I felt like I had a flu. And it was bad. It was really bad. I couldn't eat. And then this flu just like would get worse and worse and worse to the point where like I couldn't eat for 3 days. So then I was just like vomiting. If I would put like anything in my like stomach, I would just vomit it out right away. And then it kind of just stayed like that for 2 months. I lost about 20 pounds. I lost about 20 pounds. I was like skin and bone. I was like I used to fight at 135. I think I was like walking around at 140 at the time. Like normally I'd be like 55, 60. I lost so much weight. Then I would always have to go into the hospital for IVs. And then the hospital at one point, with the whole bullshit with COVID and everything like this, were like, this is like emergency rooms are only for serious matters and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm so sick. Then you weren't allowed to go into certain clinics if you had fucking a symptom of anything. If you had a rash on your arm, you weren't allowed in a clinic. That's a symptom of COVID. So, it was really frustrating. I would like try to go get help and I was not getting any help at all. And then this just progressed to the point where I was completely bedridden. I would stay in bed for about like 12 hours of the day after waking up and sleeping, and I would like wake up periodically in the middle of the night to like go puke. And then as time kind of goes on, I ended up developing like really weird symptoms. Like my heart rate would just out of nowhere go at like 160 beats per minute. My nervous system was like crazy. I was always shaking, jittery. I had crazy anxiety. And then I like started developing like neurological symptoms where like I would end up like almost in these trances where like my depth perception was off. Like things would seem like really close, then really far, and like things would swarm in my face. Like if I would stare at an object, like a plant, and then the plant would come really close to my face and really far, and I was just like, my nervous system was like, it was almost like there's too much information coming in that I would actually just put my head down sometimes and like want to just close my eyes because it's just really overwhelming. Like it was scary. It was like whatever was happening in my body, like I'm always like my heart rate is going like 170 beats per minute, and then like I would like get sent to the hospital like multiple times. Like I would start breaking out where I'd like, because I was puking so much too, I'd be turning like my face turning green. We'd call an ambulance.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
At what point were you like, okay, this isn't a concussion? This is did you think it was like CTE symptoms, or did you know something in your bones something was wrong?
I was told because like, doctor, it's all guesswork. One doctor tells me it's post-concussion symptoms.
Yeah.
One doctor tells me.
Because you just had a fight.
Yeah, but this is like, I guess when I'm talking about all the symptoms I'm explaining now, this is about 4 months this flu hasn't gone away. So this is like 4 or 5 months now. So this is 2020. We're looking at July now.
Yeah, and you never got vaccinated too, in case anybody's wondering. No. Like it's not symptoms from a shot.
Never. I got a tetanus shot around that time, which a doctor thinks that I might have. I guess when you get certain vaccines when you're already sick, it can do damage. So I was actually diagnosed one time by a doctor. He said you have all the symptoms of I believe it's Guillain-Barré syndrome. And then another doctor told me no, you would have this. So it's just so many ER visits. You get so many different opinions. No follow up. Family doctors aren't really around during COVID. So it was just all guesswork at this point.
Yeah.
Then I got sent to Richmond Hospital where they found a tumor on top of my adrenal gland. And then they said that this could be a lot of the cause for why your heart rate is going up so high, why your nervous system is very dysregulated. But it still wasn't really answering everything, because then I was then given like all these suppression tests and everything like that. Everything came back normal. They told me the tumor is not a problem. I'm like, how is a tumor on top of my adrenal glands not a problem? Explain that to me. I didn't have this before, and all these symptoms started. And then, so this is now like month 8. And then one day I came home and I had a seizure. And then that's when I knew shit was just like,
getting worse.
November of like 2020. And then I had another seizure. And then I ended up developing, while in the hospital, a staph infection that made me go septic. So then I had sepsis. I was in the hospital. I was admitted to the hospital with intravenous like antibiotics, put in the ICU. That was like, you definitely, when you have sepsis, you're always just close to death, but it seemed like there was a lot of reassurance that it's going to be okay. Although sepsis, if you've ever had it, it is pain inside your body like you wouldn't believe. It is like enough to make a grown man like bawl, to like you'll cry your eyes out when you have it. And I was in so much pain. I kind of recovered pretty quickly though from that. But then I come out of the hospital, I'm still sick. And then things actually started like getting, I feel, a little bit better. I made some like slight changes to my diet where I was just like, okay, I'm just going to eat this, and I'm just going to take matters in my own hands because I'm not getting any help from doctors. So then this is like a year and something. I start like lightly training again, slowly, but I'm still struggling a lot. Like I can't do certain things. There's no explanation as to why I had a seizure. And then I'm like, it still doesn't make sense. And then the symptoms drastically started coming back, and like they hit me really quickly. And then I had another like day where like my heart rate started going out of control. I fainted, I collapsed, I lost consciousness, I hit my head through a closet. Then my roommate, Manny Hafnawi, he's like with me when this happens. I fall through the closet, and he like calls the ambulance. Then I get taken to the ambulance, blah, 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 nothing wrong again. I end up getting a MRI, and then I end up getting seen to this neurologist who puts me on a treatment plan for autoimmune encephalitis. So we figured out what was going on with my brain, and I had a really, really rare autoimmune disease. It's autoimmune encephalitis, and basically it attacks these receptors in your brain. So it explains why my depth perception was off and everything like this. And it's very rare. Like, it's essentially like when you hear about like meningitis and stuff like that, it's something similar, but I don't have enough antibodies in my immune system to store healthy invaders, so they just start attacking you, and they just start attacking your own body. So then I get on a treatment plan for that, and then it puts those symptoms in remission. So I don't have seizures anymore and everything like this, but I'm still like stomach wise, I'm not okay. I'm not really feeling the greatest still. And And then out of nowhere, I just start developing these weird skin problems. Like my skin would just flake off. Like I'd touch my hand and just like skin was just shedding.
I remember.
Yeah, I had to quit my job at the time because like my hands would be like, if I moved my hand, it would just start bleeding like crazy. So I had to like get off the mats. And then I like go home one day, and then I'm like pretty sure I had this like gold stuff around my face. I'm like, I think this is like staph or some fungus. So I go to the hospital to get like or the clinic to go get like a cream, and they're like, this is just eczema. I'm like, this isn't fucking eczema. I know whatever. So then I basically end up with this horrific infection all over my body, and it started colonizing on me. Like I started developing this like form of like staph that's like called MSSA. So there's like MRSA, and then this type of bacteria that's super resistant. Then it started growing all over my body. And when I say all over my body, like my hands, my neck, my face, my ass, my legs, everywhere. Like I still have scars all over my body from it. And it just starts like causing little holes in my skin and like my arms. And then I go to the doctor. They put me on antibiotics. Antibiotics aren't working anymore because they've already like put me on so many rounds of it that my body is just resistant to any antibiotics now. Then this is like when shit got really bad, and then I end up septic again. But this time is like I had like, to put in context, like there's pictures that are out there of how this developed for months essentially. These pictures look photoshopped. That it's so crazy. And then I developed like you still could like see a little bit, but like I developed like this hole in my cheek. I have so much blood and pus coming from my face, and it gets into my mouth and down into my lungs. So this bacteria now started internally growing inside me, where they had to like remove these biopsies from my stomach to see what it was. So I had this colonization now that's in my immune system and inside my internal organs, and this got everywhere. It got like into my infection of my kidneys, infection of my lungs. I ended up developing like a pneumonia. I had this skin infection all over my body, and I was septic. I would not respond to antibiotics, and it looked like I was going to die. Like they started calling people in my family and stuff, and just basically my chances of survival were very low, very low. They had to put me in a coma, so I was in a coma. And then it just looked like I wasn't gonna live. Then I come out of the hospital, then I kind of wake up and I'm in the hospital and I'm just kind of delirious still. I'm like not myself. I felt very weak and very brittle. I was in a lot of pain, and then I get discharged from the hospital after I win that battle. That was about a month and a half of being inside there, dealing with all that. And then I get out of the hospital, and then again, all this infection stuff comes back. And then it was so brutal. I had to go back, and I was basically like an outpatient for the hospital getting intravenous antibiotics every day for like 7-8 months. But then I became like really ill again because the antibiotics now aren't working, and I've used the strongest antibiotics now, and now that's not working. So now we're like looking at like you are going to die again if this happens, because now if I don't figure out a cure. But it was like there's tests that doctors can do that show that your they can like take a swab of the bacteria, which is like has your fluid in it, and then they can test against antibiotics to see which ones are going to be resistant to. And I was resistant to every antibiotics, including like clindamycin, which is like one of the most powerful antibiotics. They use it to kill MRSA, and I wasn't responding to that. And then it was basically like, we need to figure something out, or I'm going to die again, because if I became septic again, this was all preventative. Me doing all these antibiotics, because this infection kept growing back on my face. I had to like walk around with a bandage on my face for like a year. I used to have to like sleep. My skin became so itchy, and like it was so brutal. I used to have to get a friend to come over at night to tape my arms behind my back and sleep straight on my back, so that way in the middle of the night I would just wake up and I would scratch my face while I was sleeping because it was so itchy. And I used to like scratch through my skin to the point where I had no skin on my face, so I had to walk around with gauze, tape the gauze all over my face so it wouldn't leak into my mouth again. And I would have to sleep with my hands taped and my face taped every night for like 7-8 months. And then that kind of made me not really want to leave the house. Couldn't work, couldn't do anything really. And then then you came along, and a lot of other people came along to see what we could do to help. And then I had obviously been like, I don't want to die. I went from the point of being like, I don't give a shit about living.
I was going to ask you, sorry to interrupt. I was going to ask you, because this is just horrific, right? It's like some of the worst things could ever happen to somebody. Was there ever a moment where you were like, I want to die?
Yeah. When I was in the hospital, like the third time I became septic, I was ready to pack it in. It was just like, not that I'm like a suicidal person. I was just like, there's just no hope. Like everything just doesn't work. And
you have no control, right?
Yeah, it's just and the more frustrating thing is that I'm like, it's kind of maybe the wrong mindset at the time, but I just remember thinking all the time, like, I just wish someone listened to me when I said I was sick, because I would just get called a liar constantly. I would get called like paranoid. You just have anxiety. And I know myself, and I know how I am. I'm a pretty tough person. Like, for me to like, to go to the hospital takes me quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that person. I'm not a hypochondriac in the sense of like, if I have like a pain in my stomach, I have pains in my stomach all the time. Like, like there's still, like, I won't lie, there's lingering symptoms, but in comparison to where I've been, I almost like just shut up about it, because it's like to explain to people where I was at before is just, it's like night and day. So I just, it was really hard too, because during that time I didn't really feel like, even though you have a lot of people around you that love you and people that do care, when you're sick, it's the loneliest feeling ever, because you just feel that like, you just feel like you have it feels like it's almost like it's a blessing and a curse, where it's like, it's like, I remember at certain days, like, well, if I die today, like, who's gonna care, but then that's just like, I think a harsh reality about when you're sick is that, like, this is your fight. This isn't anyone else's fight. This is your fight to take on. It's your fight to win. So there's definitely like peaks and valleys of like feeling strong, and then there's definitely like valleys of just like, I don't give a shit anymore. I'm embarrassed to be in public. I'm wearing bandages on my face. People probably think I'm like a crackhead. Like, you know, I would like get called names and shit. And it's like, but then at the same time too, like, because I've been an athlete my whole life and I still know how to fight. Like, yo, I'll take this fucking IV out of my arm and I'll beat the shit out of you. You know what I mean? Like, I still know how to fight. So it's like anger, depression, fucking frustration is basically like the constant emotion I felt for like 3 years. You know what I mean? And it's just, and then I kind of actually just looked into like these injection therapies. I met this doctor. He is an allergen specialist, and then we saw that what was causing my autoimmune disease and these flare-ups, these bacteria, is that I had something called like hyper IgE syndrome. And this hyper IgE syndrome, it elevates like, so basically it's essentially like your body's own reaction to allergies and allergens and things like this. And I basically would react to everything. So I had to get a medication, Dupixent, to bring my IgE levels down. And then I was also taking a medication called Xolair for 6 months. And that these bring down your body's responses to your IgE levels being elevated. Cause like in comparison, to put in context, it's about like your levels are supposed to be around 500 or below. My levels are at 25,000. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so it was like pretty dire that I got it. So yeah, just had to raise the money because it's not all covered. I got some of it ended up being covered, and now being in the program, I actually have my medication covered now, I believe, for life. So
because they see that it's working.
Yeah, it's like my levels have been at. I'm pretty sure I mean, I like I said, I don't even get blood checked anymore. I feel like if there was a symptom, I would look into it, but I feel good, so I just
before we started recording, we were kind of talking about, you know, you were mentioning like, oh, I'm overdue to see my rheumatologist, right? And like I have a rheumatologist as well, and nice guy. He's known as one of the best guys in the city, right? He's probably like less than 10 years into, and then he's going to be retired. So he's got an established career. And he's a nice guy and whatever, but like, this is a guy who, with my experience, all he ever did was offer me more and more immunosuppressants. The medication that I was taking for my symptoms, I had like rheumatoid arthritis, they thought, where I'd get these crazy flare-ups. Again, you can check out episode 7. I go into great depth about my whole experience, and like this guy just, he started off with a hydroxychloroquine, which worked for a couple years. And I kept asking him like, hey man, is this food related at all? Like I've heard that certain foods are inflammatory. Like, what do you think of this carnivore diet? What do you think of the animal-based diet? And he's like, no, red meat is inflammatory, which is like Western. That's what's in your textbooks. Right. And and I remember the symptoms started coming back and way worse than before, because this guy never once told me that I should care about what I eat. He's just like, no, we don't know what causes this. There's no cure, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, it's coming back. This is progressing faster than we would have thought. You're going to need to cope and go on to stronger medication. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I just got my gym, like it's starting to become profitable now. And, you know, I don't, you know, am I going to be able to do jiu-jitsu again? And a lot of, like you said, like a lot of emotions and feelings come over you, and you feel like, you feel so helpless. There's no control. You don't even know what's causing it. And every time you go see a professional, they just want to give you more and more drugs. Right. And then of course I ran into this woman who signed up her kid at my gym, and she was a nutritionist, and she started putting me on this animal-based diet. And I'm so glad that I had done that, because I had tried a lot of specialists. And when I went on that diet, within 2 months, my symptoms were just gone. And I'm so glad I tried that. And took a non-conventional route, as opposed to listening to the professional, even though, you know, normally with a doctor, like if I break my arm, I'm going to listen to a professional. If I have
100%,
you know, like I'm not saying that doctors are always wrong, but I'm just saying certain things, especially when it comes to like autoimmune cases, man, we don't know anything about it. And nobody's going to tell you to only eat meat. No one's going to tell you to, not take medication. And they're all going to tell you we don't know what causes it and we don't know what the cure is. So we just got to find ways to suppress the symptoms. And once I realized that a change in diet would kind of completely put me in remission, it's like I got my life back, right? It's like you see things. It's like you're reborn again. It's like you see things from a different way, and you're just like grateful for things. You become really grateful for the little things, like just stepping off the mats after training, and you're just like, "Fuck, thank God I can do this again." Like, and I know you know what that feels like, right?
Man. Well, I remember when I was sick, and I remember like when me and you would talk, and I like see in you too, where it's like, you weren't able to compete during that time because your symptoms would be so bad. And, it's not coincidental that during that time you're always getting knee injuries and shit like that too, man, because it's like at the end of the day, there is wear and tear from your sport, but your body, when it's fucking being attacked, shit is going to go wrong easier. You know what I mean? Like, and I completely agree in the sense of like, I had to do a lot of experimenting too, because, at the end of the day, when you start diving into cures for yourself, right? Like I did carnivore, then I did introducing a lot of fruit, and then I was like, oh, my stomach, like that is, I don't care what any doctor said. I know what happened. I understand the story better than anyone because I was the guy living in my truth. You know what I mean? And when I did carnivore with introducing the fruit back in, oh, my stomach, my skin didn't get better. My skin stayed horrible, but my stomach became to the point where I'm like, whew, I'm not throwing up during meals anymore.
Yeah.
And it was amazing what it did for my stomach. So I completely hear you in the sense of like, doctors are not always wrong, but Western doctors about like autoimmune diseases, Western doctors usually are. You know what I mean? They usually are wrong.
And like you said, you're like, I have no reason to go back to this guy. And I'm like, me neither. I'm not going back to my guy either. He's just going to be, like, I saw him and I was like, dude, I have no symptoms. He's like, oh, that's very interesting. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing the animal diet. Like I haven't had a flare up in like 6 months. Like, this is insane. Are you taking the medication? No, I haven't taken medication in 6 months. And he's like, oh, that's nice. And I'm like, okay, well, do you want to know more? He's like, yeah, there's nothing really more to tell me. Like, I can't recommend what you did to somebody else because he didn't say this but it's because it's not authorized. It's not in the textbook.
Yeah, it's not in the scope of practice of what they are taught, right?
Right. And then you could look at it from another angle that and maybe this is kind of like a negative way to look at it, but like the pharmaceutical companies don't benefit from that solution, right? Like
they don't. No,
they don't. There's no way to benefit for them to benefit if it's just a matter of eliminating certain foods from your diet, right?
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this: a doctor that reached out to me privately during this whole time, who lost his license for trying to be a good guy. That I still talk to. He comes to all my fights. He flew out to Vegas for my last fight as well. This guy's the man. So he lost his license because he was a respiratory therapist during COVID. And obviously I would love to say his name right now because he's an amazing person, but I won't. He lost his license because he was telling people to take hydroxychloroquine, and he was telling them to take
ivermectin.
No, not ivermectin. Just zinc, zinc is not harmful. Kids,
it's just a supplement. You can get it at the drugstore.
So giving people this information, he lost his license as a respiratory therapist, and This guy was like, he just wanted to help people.
Yeah.
This guy is such a genuine person. And
he wouldn't bend the knee.
He wouldn't bend the knee, and then he lost his license. He lost everything. He went through like a severe depression because now he's stuck in COVID. How am I going to earn my wages? Where I mean, I don't know what you make as a respiratory therapist, but I imagine the money is pretty good. And he said that all these doctors wanted to put people on these corticosteroid steroids that would basically like suppress the lung inflammation. He said all you're doing is suppressing it, and then now when those symptoms, when you get off of it or you weed off of it, he basically explained to me as steroids like that, you slowly become dependent. And I know he's telling the truth because when I first saw a dermatologist about everything that's happening, steroid cream this, my skin got to the point where it was so thin on my face that like I used to never be able to leave the house without bringing like a big thing of moisturizer with me because every 6 hours my skin's so thin that I would just have to like constantly put moisturizer on my, and it's like then you're putting other chemicals and shit on your body as well. Whereas like it's just he lost his job for trying to be a good guy, you know what I mean, and really help people, and people that just abide to, you know, just the whole fucking North American way of living and just take your medication and you don't need to exercise, eating good isn't going to help you. Like at this point,
not allowed to go to the gym, not allowed to go to parks.
At this point, I would just have to say, like,
fucking crazy.
You just get fucked. I don't know. If you truly do believe that, you are either incredibly naive or you are legitimately stupid.
Yeah. If we talked like this during COVID, you know, I wouldn't even be allowed to put this.
We get canceled. We get canceled right now, you know. And you know what? Saying anything that's like controversial. If you take care of your body, you will be better off. And you aren't even allowed to say that. That's it's misinformation. If you go into saunas, it does show that if you have infections, it reduces inflammation of that infection. But you can't even now, if you want to go down the science route, well, there's scientific evidence for making the case that taking care of your body will benefit you. You know, so it's just fucking.
They always say trust the science as if it's some kind of like deity or some kind of clergy, some kind of like priest class. It's like science is a method. It's not a fucking If you're gonna really follow science, then you know you're never going to be satisfied with your answer, because the whole point of the scientific method is to always keep putting your theories under scrutiny and having an open mind. But this is what we saw during COVID was not the scientific method. It was believe us or we're going to take away your ability to earn an income, you know, and how quickly it changed. It was so, I remember it like it was yesterday, and I know everyone else wants to fucking forget that, you know, and if I get kicked off of YouTube or whatever for talking like this, you know, I know it's like after the fact now, it's now fashionable to criticize COVID and how everybody reacted. It's so funny how it shifted. If I ever get kicked off, like, fuck it, I don't care. You know, it's not
probably better off anyways.
You know, like it's fucking crazy. And Joe Rogan, I'm not a huge Joe Rogan fan, honestly. In fact, in terms of the vaccine, he was kind of a grifter. Like, he pushed the vaccine when he should have actually been talking about questioning it. And now that it's safe to criticize it, now he talks like as if he was never in support of it. He's a pretty big grifter in that way. But I will say one thing that Rogan said that is true is we did lose a lot of people during COVID. We lost a lot of people that were close to us, and most of them are still alive today. You know what I mean? And that's so fucking true. And I was one of those people, you know, because I was like looking at all this, and I'm like, this is so fucking crazy. Like, what is happening right now? This is, you know, if this was really a deadly disease, we would know. There would be people dying in the streets. I'm not saying people didn't die, because certainly people did die, but it was, you know, it's a psyop. There's something else to it. And if I get in trouble for saying that, fuck it, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, people, like, this is the thing, is they trick you into, like, if you say something that is like very well known, then you're a sociopath who doesn't care about anyone.
That's a little game they want to play, right?
Yeah, like COVID did kill. COVID killed a lot of people. It did, for sure. so does a lot of other fucking diseases every single day.
So does the flu.
Like, there's something like every, what was it? I saw this thing. Every 7 seconds, someone in the world dies from a flu, apparently. I want to be sure about that. But I read something about that. Like, or influenza kills someone like every 7 to like 10 seconds in the world. So it's not putting it down, but it's just like, if there is a fucking flu going around, like, I'm not going to, like, so one thing that I'll say, like, just point closing, is that if there was ever some shit like rabies that was just viral and in the air, oh my God, I'd be staying low. I am not a person that wants to be controversial for the sake of it. It's fucking use common sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, fuck, there's a cold going around. Fuck, there's colds going around every day. Fucking, you know how many times I've been sick, like, throughout my life? We all have. Like, did we fucking make everyone shut down? Like, even now, like, I'm the type of person that if someone is sick around me, if I, like, if my fight isn't in 3 or 4 days, like if my girl gets sick, I fucking go in the room, fucking cuddle her. I don't give a shit. I'm not that person. You know what I mean? Like, especially when she's been sick the way I have. I'm like, well, what do you get? Like, a little
doesn't really get much
like,
worse.
I don't give a fuck. Who cares? Like, you'll fight it off. You're young. You're healthy. Shut. And then for people that do have immune compromise situations, then stay away. Common sense,
old,
for sure. If you are susceptible to like
obese,
being violently ill, then if you're fat, you don't take care of yourself, and you treat your body like shit, you probably never want to get sick or injured, because your body's inflammation response is going to be way higher because you have more inflammation inside you. So it's like, it's not fucking, I don't know. It's just kind of common sense, to be honest. Just take care of your body. Don't be a fucking idiot.
And all those,
that's the real life.
all those fat people during COVID, they're the ones with the masks and getting all triggered if you're not socially distancing and all that shit. Anyways, I mean, this has kind of turned into the COVID and also Jamie's, road to recovery story. But the real reason I wanted to talk to you is for your fighting expertise. So I don't know how much time we have left here, but I did want to pick your brain a little bit about ground and pound. Is that cool? Can we shift gears here?
Sure, man. For sure.
Okay. So, what are some of the best positions as an MMA fighter? What are some of the best positions to, land strikes and use your ground and pound?
So with ground and pound, what changes from the perspective of, if you are, like, let's say you're using your jiu-jitsu in a sense where people that like to invert from the bottom, your head is very susceptible now to being hurt. There's a reason why the fundamentals and foundations of creating space and frames and being able to get enough space to be far away or to be in close as possible, right? So like if you're in bottom and half guard, you want to either off balance, get their weight and their hands far away from you based on the mat. So if you can like use like an octopus situation or push them into like outside ashy, and not using that as a way to actually try and submit them, but using that to create off balancing motion.
When you when you say go to outside ashy, you're referring to a reaping position, right?
Yes, using like a like if I'm on bottom and half guard and I can frame, I can redirect your hands on the mat and start attacking that outside reap, and now just using that to get you to spin through. So that's going to be like my objective in MMA. I'm not going to use that to try and finish you for the most part. I'm going to use that to get on top of you. Now, what changes with strikes when it comes to jiu-jitsu and just grappling in general, because even you can look at an over-under position locked up from a 50-50 with strikes involved. That changes everything as well. I can now knee you in the liver. Getting hit with short knees to the liver fucking hurts. You can drop someone very easily with like a precise knee. So what changes with ground and pound, and some of the best spots to ground and pound people from, are anytime you can get someone flat on their back, obviously. So one of the best control positions that I like to use for ground and pound is half guard. Reason being why is because now if they come up to sit up with that underhook. Now I have a good framing tool. Now I can push your head and I can actually line up my shot, right? So I can use like a cross face and slice down with like an elbow. And now from there, like they're trying to like, if I can get good head control. Whereas normally in a no-gi match, if I'm allowing someone to get that far underneath, they could be attacking, inverting to my legs. One position I really like to do is like if they do from that bottom half guard start looking to go underneath, now from here I'll just like strip one arm and just start elbowing the side of their head, and you will watch people that like are very confident with attacking legs and attacking positions where you're going underneath people, which is like if I'm doing no-gi, like I love that shit. But I know in an MMA context or just in a self-defense context how dangerous that can be. So like half guard is one of my favorite tools. You can't get as many fight finishing shots off as you can from different positions, but as far as causing lacerations with elbows, half guard is one of the best, and it's a good spot to control people from. One of the next best positions that I personally like to use is if you're in side control, using that crucifix situation. And a lot of the times from that crucifix, people don't look at it at no-gi as much, although I believe that they should. I think stapling down arms, like people always are looking for a specific. I find what's happening with jiu-jitsu is that everyone looks for specific techniques rather than looking at concepts. If you can kill someone's ability to frame on your hips by using your legs as a pummeling tool, well, now if I can staple down that arm from side control, and now I can start pulling that far side underhook up, attacking that Kimura grip, I can attack that arm bar, I can spin, I can take your back. So I personally just believe from a grappling context that you should always be using your legs like your arms to pummel, right? Like you'll see people that like some of the best guard passers in the world where like their knee pummeling, their shin pummeling system is high level. I like to use that even when I have people flat on their back. So like one position that you can get that's really good is like stapling down that near side arm in side control and just start smashing, and their arm strap, they're going to be wiggling trying to get this arm back. In that process you can hit nasty elbows. John Jones is probably the best I've ever seen at if you watch his fight with Vladimir Matyushenko, just fucking takes this guy down. Just, boom, scarf holds, switches, bang, bang, bang. And it's such a violent, vulnerable position. I finished Blake Sigvaldason from there as well. But it's such a violent position because their head is so vulnerable that even if they don't go unconscious, the ref will stop it. They're going to stop it pretty quickly because it's just your head is so vulnerable. So anytime I can take your arms out of an equation and use them to be stapled down to start causing like damage with my elbows, my punches, that's always great. One of the next best positions to ground and pound from by far is 3/4 mount. And now like as you're passing the half guard, sometimes when you're in mount, especially nowadays with like people's ability to kip and off balance, and actually there's a lot of people that I learned this from when I was like 18. I used to train with Gary Tonin when he would come out to TriStar, and mounting this dude was just like, you didn't want to go and mount on him. Yeah. He would just get into your legs right away. And I do believe that leg lock system, I believe that in MMA, if you're having a guy striking you, anything that you can do to get him off balance, so kipping is probably by far, I think, one of the most effective escapes from mount, just in the sense of being able to keep their weight off balance. If they're not pinning your wrist down, and now you can start to kip, and you can start to get their hands maybe even to post on the mat. Okay, well now they're not hitting you anymore. Now this is an opportunity for you to get into a leg entanglement. You can start to look to go like underneath. If their hips get elevated, get to like an X guard position, and being able to attack their balance system. So I'm not the biggest fan of elbowing from, or just ground and pound in general from mount, but 3/4 where you're like your leg is still and captured with their like ankles, and they have that short grip on your ankle. Now from there, like they're basically pulling, or they're keeping you attached to them while your chest is and your head is over their head, and now you can get nasty shots off from that 3/4 mount position.
Right.
So those are like really effective positions that kill a lot of modern day techniques and evolution of where no-gi and jiu-jitsu, like, it's so funny for like coming from myself, who like, I'm a complete geek when it comes to jiu-jitsu. I want to know every new technique that comes out. I want to know every escape, fancy, basic, fundamental. Like, I want to know everything because I just enjoy martial arts. And then there's the other side of me that knows, like, oh, if you like, I can be the student that's humble enough to be like, oh, that's very effective for no-gi. Oh, I'm going to try that. And I'll do it. I'll do unorthodox shit when I roll no-gi. My game is completely different. Now, if I'm fighting you, this is a completely different story. I'm going to smash your face in. If you go to deep half on me or any coyote guard type of situation, if I have a strong whizzer and I can cross face, you are so fucked.
You had mentioned how generally it sounds like you're favoring half guard type positions because I could be, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's because there's more control over your partner's leg. And when that's the case, it's more difficult for them to start to heist up and move around. Is that true?
Yeah. And also too with certain, like, I'll modify my game in the sense of like when I'm ground and pounding, I'll modify what my number one priorities are. Like if I can ground and pound to someone, like I can use elbows and punches to their head, I actually will like sit on the leg more rather than where like I'll use like a body lock connection to like try to tripod up, dig my like underhooks to like flare the elbows and now use like my instep to start to pass, where like now I'll prioritize and like just sitting and staying super heavy and staying very committed to like owning and dominating that position. And I feel like when ground and pound becomes involved in a grappling scenario, what changes the most is the composure that you need to keep with just staying heavy, right? Just staying heavy on the legs, just being committed to the situation, and knowing that you are now trading the transition effort in order to just dominate and control the position. That's why you'll see people like that will just be content to stay there and just smash, because I don't need to use as much effort to get to a better position now to just submit you. I can create that scenario to force you to make a mistake to get the finish. And then if I want to use my elbows and my ground and pound to force you to give your back and now I can choke you, great. Or just lead that to a more dominant position to the point where, a lot of the times I'll use like half guard as a tool to force people to give their back, because they try to like dig that underhook, boom. So now they'll start like turtling and like trying to hand fight and get up. And then from there they expose their back, bang, bang, bang. And I'll just keep riding that situation. Whereas like, it's almost like the concept of ground and pound changes people's comfort, obviously, to be on their back, number one, just because like, yeah, it's a shit time. If you got a high level wrestler that knows how to hit hard and has good ground and pound, right? It's hell. And there's like, just like any skill that's on the ground, like your hand fighting, your head fighting, your leg pummeling, like ground and pound is a skill. Like there's a lot of skill in finding the right shots in the right spots for the right angles. That's why half guard, crucifix, 3/4 mount, and even just grabbing someone in a turtle position. Like if you want to turtle on me, I'm going to box the side of your head in. It's not fun to stay in a turtle position. Like especially if someone's really good, a guy goes to Granby roll, you follow, bring them back to their knees, just smash. They try to trap up your wrist to like Granby roll you over, just jump over to the other side, hit shots underneath their guard. And ground and pound really changes grappling a lot, and more so in the sense that you see what these positions that people are striving to get in a no-gi context will now put you in the most danger if there's strikes involved in that situation. So that's why for me, like when I coach kids, now this is very different than how I'll coach adults, because my adult classes, I will get into more intricate inversions and more like sophisticated systems where we're going to go to here, to here, to here. But with kids, one thing that I really try to prioritize and focus is, like, if I go to a tournament and I'm coaching these kids at a tournament, just get on top. Get on top. Because I feel like with kids, if you teach them almost like, okay, we're not looking for too many submissions off our back, let's sweep and get on top of this person. So that way we can just have gravity on our side. So when gravity is on your side, it changes the effort of the person on bottom. Like the person on bottom now has to make the effort to get to a better position. I now can stay here and I can just fuck you up with elbows. I can cut you. I can hurt you with shots. And even like little chipping shots. You'd be surprised the force you can generate by just punching someone's body. Like they want to wrap up your head, just body. Like people will let go. And then now once your head gets over their head, bang, you can just use nasty elbows to hurt people. So ground and pound to me is, in my opinion, is just as important to address when it comes to grappling, in the sense of grappling as a whole. I'm not talking about gi jiu-jitsu. I'm not talking about no gi jiu-jitsu. I'm talking about in self-defense, MMA. I feel, because of my awareness of ground and pound, even if we're not punching each other in the face hard in a practice, my decision-making process will change drastically. My concept of making the situation an even fight. So like from here, like I will use now an underhook just to come up, back up to my feet. Or now, like if I'm on bottom, I want to create as much space between us as possible so your head is getting lower than my hips, or I want to get back up to my feet or get on top, obviously. But there's a lot of positions that change everything. That change everything about jiu-jitsu.
Where does you like in your hierarchy of favored positions to land from the ground and pound? Where does closed guard fit into that?
Closed guard is really great for elbows, elbows and punches. Like closed guard is a great spot, especially if you can maintain control of the guy's arms. Now, like if you have a really high level guard player that, like when you go to posture, they're just like going underneath, like going to K guard. There is more, obviously, like when someone's in a guard situation, there's more opportunity for them to create off-balancing motion, whether that's they're going underneath the K guard, they're now like trying to put in their butterfly hook. Closed guard works really well when you have them pressed against the barrier. So if it's MMA and I have your head against the wall, I love closed guard, right? Closed guard, it's amazing because now like I almost like use the cage as like a table for their head to sit on. So if I can keep their head off the mat and they keep their head in the cage, there's nasty shit. Even if you throw up an arm bar, it's really hard for you to get the space with your hips to hip out enough to actually go and finish that arm bar. And, you know, if you're also getting caught with a fucking 5-point arm bar from guard, should probably brush up on your defensive mechanics, you know what I mean? But the one thing that you have seen in the past from certain guard players is that, like, even in MMA, like Charles Oliveira is a great example. Like you don't want to fuck around in his closed guard. You can hurt him from inside there, but there's just a lot of threat and a lot more danger. So if I have someone in a closed guard situation, I want to try and get them and their head as close to a barrier. Now, if I can like strip their hands, pin them to like their body, and then now elbow over the top of that, that's also like a great option to be able to just control the guard. You just really have to be cognizant of keeping your head square, right? You don't want them getting angles and getting underneath or being able to control your posture. Just keep in front of their head at all times. You feel that slightest movement of them hipping out, just walk your feet back, keep live toes, and just keep facing towards their head. I want to be able to see everything you're doing, right? So even if they do start to get underneath you, like I want to actually be looking. If you are inverted underneath and you are attacking my leg, I want to see where your head is. So like even from here, like what I'll do sometimes is I'll bait people. Like especially there's this one guy I fought he's a really high level grappler. His name's Michael Hay.
Oh yeah.
He comes out to a lot of the tournaments out here, and this guy is he's a pretty nasty guy off his back, and I know that dealing with him in no-gi would be a lot more difficult than dealing with him when I can hit him. And when we fought, I really exploited his purest jiu-jitsu mentality. He was very much like a Thai boxer in the feet. He just didn't really care about utilizing wrestling too much because he was so confident off his back, submitting a bunch of people off his back. I'm like, well, that's going to be a problem with someone like me because I have good defense and great understanding of jiu-jitsu because I love jiu-jitsu. It's probably the discipline over the course of my entire career that I've trained the most. I love jiu-jitsu. I'm a jiu-jitsu nerd, but I'm not a jiu-jitsu nerd in the sense of using it delusionally for MMA. I know that certain positions can get me very hurt against someone who understands that situation from a purist level as well. So I really, really exploited his inversion game. Like even in Briona's, like I actually let him. He started inverting to like find that like inverted knee trap. Now from there, I just like triangled my feet, kept my knee and enough weight on my leg to make my leg heavy so he couldn't extend my leg. And now from there, I have him in almost like a dope mount position and just start beating the shit out. And you'll let it go right away. When you feel that you're starting to see flashes and your orbital's getting crushed as you're going for these legs, you will let go. As much as you think your commitment is there, you're going to let go because now these are all free shots I'm hitting you with. And if you understand ground and pound mechanics and how to arch and get as much power as you possibly can, you can fucking cause a lot of damage, especially if people aren't aware of where their head position needs to be. There's definitely better sweeping mechanics and better systems that work for MMA from the bottom than a lot of this stuff that will be taught in more so actually a modern jiu-jitsu school. And that's the catch with jiu-jitsu because it's evolved so much. Like the intricacies.
I know, it's fucking crazy how fast it moves.
Like even like because for me, I pride myself on being a person who stays updated on everything, even if I don't like it. Right? Like my objective in a jiu-jitsu match, being completely honest, for whoever hears this, because I eventually will want to just do more grappling once I'm done fighting. My number one goal isn't to get to your leg. But I know how to attack it if it's there because you can't be. In my opinion, I don't like to develop something called like that's my style. I want to know everything just because I want to stay updated on I want to know what my enemy is planning, right? So I will go and I'll study. I'll fucking do my tape study on all the modern intricacies of everything that is happening because I want to stay updated. And I also just am a martial arts nerd. I want to know what everyone's up to these days, right? But I will never deviate from teaching fundamentals. And I think the reason being why is the whole concept of utilizing grappling for the purpose of being able to actually, you're walking home one day with your wife and two dudes empty your fucking wallet right now. you're not taking my girl's wallet. You're not right. I'm gonna fuck you up. And going to my back and trying to invert is probably not going to be the greatest game plan to go against this situation. I want to take you down, maul you, and beat the shit out of you, right? And uh, it's crazy how much strikes can change grappling.
Definitely. What are some of the differences between, in terms of landing punches and elbows? What are some of the differences? How do you apply those techniques when you compare standing to the ground? Like how you throw them, your body positioning, your posture, what part of your hand you're using? Like, is it the same, or is it? How would you describe that?
So like if I'm on the feet, the whole the muscle, like you're using a completely different energy system. So like on the feet, I want to keep everything tight, sharp, no wind up. So everything is going to come more at like a speed of like pop, 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 right? I'm trying to like use speed, fast twitch muscle fibers to like let my shots come from point A to point B as fast as possible, retract it, bring it back into a tight position. Whereas now, if I have you on your back, I have gravity on my side. So when I have gravity on my side, I now can use different mechanics. Now from here, instead of it being like a fast twitch, like pop, I'm now going to use more of like a thudding approach. So especially if my head is over your head, now I'm not going to hit you like a speed bag drill, pop, 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 pop. It would actually just look kind of weird when you do it. I want to use more of like a force and like a thud. So using my shoulder
like a loop
mechanic. Yeah, and you will almost like see your placement of like your knuckles will be coming down, and naturally your elbow will be like over your fist, right? So it almost looks more like an overhand type of position that I will use when ground and pounding. And obviously that can vary and that can change depending on the position. But you're using a different energy system. There's almost like more of like a load up. I one of the biggest analogies I teach to people in my MMA class is picture like you're starting up a chainsaw, right? So you start up that chainsaw, you're pulling that chain back. Now from there, once that chain, you have that retraction, you have it started, drop it down, and don't think about like speed. Think about thud, right? So that's like one thing that I want to see from someone who ground and pounds. When I look at their ground and pound bag, I should see a dent in it. I should see that there's compression coming down. Whereas if you're watching someone hit a heavy bag, you're not going to see a bunch of dents. You're going to hear a lot of pop, 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 right? The speed has to be fast. Ground and pound, you do want it to be fast, but you can load up more, right? As long as you're being aware, minding your P's and Q's about not staying there for too long, especially against a dangerous guard player. You don't want to be exposing opportunities for triangles, which you still see at the highest level. Like Verdum was one of the guys with like Fedor from the guard, Velasquez as well. Like there are dangers to staying there for too long, but it's a different energy system. It's almost more like static, right? There's more of like a I'm using my gravity against your head. Whereas on the feet, I want to be like fast twitch. I want to pop and I want to have live feet be in and out. With this, I'm using more of like a force and an arch down to create that thudding mechanic to be able to really, really put my knuckle through your face. I don't want to like hit you. I want to go down and through your orbital. I want to hit your jaw. I want to smash your liver. And when I do that, I'm using that force of my shoulder and dropping it down.
Would you say that what you're using, the part of your hand that you're using to punch, changes when you're doing ground and pound as opposed to when you're standing? Generally, it's like your first two knuckles, right? When you're standing.
Yeah, especially now, like if you're talking, like I still want to use my two big knuckles for the most part. I think what changed a lot is your elbow placement, right? Your shots will naturally come a lot wider. There is efficacy to like hitting with like the end of the lever, like these two pinky knuckles, especially if like I'm like if someone, one thing I'll do is like if someone's controlling my head, the back of my head, I'll just start to use like almost like these rabbit punches to like want to force you to move, right? So I want you to let go so you can create space to get out. And then now that's going to give me opportunity to land bigger shots. So now when you're talking of like an elbow, like if I'm using an elbow on the feet, it's going to be, again, sharp and precise. I want to use a lot of speed and retract that back. Whereas like now I'll drive down. So I think what changes a lot is how much arc and torque you're using with your shoulder to draw the gravity weight down in comparison to on the feet where you're trying to keep it more sharp, precise. I'm not going to overexploit myself on the feet. On the ground, I will. Like sometimes I actually will like be standing, controlling someone's legs, and I will dive head first in, leading with like the elbow I'm hitting with, and like let that weight follow through. So there's more commitment in the sense of it looks like you would be losing your balance, but again, there's a technique component to it. I'm not just throwing random shit. I know where the elbow is going, and I know where my base position is after. I want to get frame. I want to be able to look at you. So that's one of my theories with ground and pound. I want to be able to look at you the whole time. And it actually, I think there's a psychological component too to like when you're on top of someone and you are just observing their movement and just staring, like I will just stare, even if I'm like hitting it, I'll just stare at them, punch their body, watch, like you almost get like a bit of an observational period. Like, how much did that hurt you? I feel it. That's how, and then now you know, okay, I feel your energy wilting. You're giving me that fetal position. Once I see fetal position, this fight's done. Once I see that you have curled into a ball, the fight's over now. I will just unload till the ref stops it. So it's easier, obviously, to finish someone with strikes. That's why it's like the slap fighting stuff. It's kind of like, okay, well, you should just let them punch each other in the head once they're on the ground now. But it is cool to me because you see, like, people can see, like, oh, yeah, if you get someone in their back, like, don't be in such a position to roll off to the side, look for, like, hand trapping systems. Like, fucking belly them out and just slap the shit out of them. It's cool. Like, my buddy Ethan Krellenstein, he like had a pretty viral finish with slap fighting, and he just like he just slapped the shit out of the guy. And I'm like, that's so funny because I think the reason why that situation is really good for him is he is originally from TriStar. So I was there like when he started at like day one. Actually, I was on the mats with him, and then like I remember like he would come to like the 12 o'clock class, and I would like be like teaching him like, yeah, no, use this, and it's so funny because I was like, oh, the reason why he's good at getting that arc and that shoulder position is just from all that time at TriStar and just being around the MMA guys for so long. I think he has a better understanding of what works from a striking context than most pure grapplers would understand.
Can you give me some common mistakes that you see people do when they're ground and pounding?
I think sacrificing the volume for the quality is one thing I see. Like people use like like there's definitely chipping away at someone, but there's also like there is sometimes people sacrifice losing that position to get some really shitty shots off. Whereas like, I want to play a game with you. I want to go control, damage. And when I damage you, I want it to hurt. If you look at the best ground and pounders of all time, so I put like Fedor in there. I put John Jones in there. I put Khabib in there. Rory McDonald. When they ground and pound, it's with an intention. So even like one thing that I'll do when I'm teaching ground and pound to my students, I'll tell them, show savage intensity, but don't hit your partner. Even if you get to like 3/4 mount on them, take your hand and smash the shit out of the mat right by their head and let them know. But I think what happens is everyone in sparring wants to be a dick. They want to take their hand. They want to hammer fist their partner. They want to do like all this shit that's not really going to hurt them that much. But then your partner goes home with a bloody lip, a black eye, for something that didn't really hurt that much. Whereas now if your reaction and your instinct is to go savage when you have that ground and pound, and I think in my opinion, there's coaches out here that would definitely be disagreeing with me right now. I think when you focus on becoming efficient at everything you do, you have to use less energy. That's why a black belt that has years and years of experience will take this athletic stud who is way more athletic than him, but just can control him like a baby because my technique is so much more efficient. You can be stronger than me all you want. I roll with guys that are way bigger and stronger than me on a frequent basis, and I will wrap them up like a pretzel because my technique is more efficient. And I feel that being efficient is important. I want, like, there's chipping shots I'll use for sure. Like, I'll go body, but that last one, I'm going to head, bang, and I'm going to hurt you. And then I'm going to go back to control. I'm going to mind my P's and Q's. I'm not going to allow you to get all the space to get back up. I'm not just going to be like an aggro dude just going over the top. Like, you'll see Khabib. One thing that I really like that the Dagestanis do is they use their leg as like a pummeling tool. They'll wrap up those legs, solidify control, bang, bang. Where do they go after? Back to control. Where do they go after? Bang, bang. But every shot, for the most part, that they're throwing has an intention behind it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to drain the gas tank, but that's why I feel it's just like anything. You hit pads throughout your camp being explosive. You need to, and that's one thing that I changed a lot for this fight as well, is I went back to keeping training simple and take a ground and pound bag after you're done jiu-jitsu practice, whatever, and just start smashing it. Go back to control and smash it. Go back to control. I feel is a very effective way to develop your ground and pound. If you're focusing on putting out a heavy workload or a heavy intensity when you do throw your ground and pound, you will become more nasty with your ground and pound. Your ground and pound will get better, undeniably.
What is more satisfying, finishing somebody by ground and pound or submitting them?
Ground and pound 100%. It's just, it feels like you left them so helpless. Like, they're like, especially for like, if you knock someone out with ground and pound, that's a pretty great feeling. One of my favorite victories I had in my career was actually my pro debut. And this guy slammed me, picks me up, slams me. I caught him with like a butterfly sweep, and I got it in his back and like turtle. And I just I hit him with uppercuts. He fought his way back up. I suplexed him, just catch him with shots to the point where he just got like, fuck this. Like, I'm just going to go into a ball. It's a really satisfying feeling when you just watch their jiu-jitsu defenses. And when I say jiu-jitsu defenses, that's not me actually shitting on jiu-jitsu. No. What it is I'm using jiu-jitsu with ground and pound. I think that's one thing that I don't like that there's even when people have these debates on no, MMA guys will fuck these guys up. No, if you don't have jiu-jitsu, you're not going to survive. You need jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Now, your priorities with your jiu-jitsu is what will win and lose matches, right? So I'll use my leg pummeling tools. Now, once I get past a situation like a guard, okay, bang, bang, bang. Now I'm going to go MMA style. Then I'll go back to control, position, transition, and watching when you can get gravity on your side, be on top, and then watching someone eventually just start wilting because they can't figure out their way on top and you're hurting them too much, and watching them go into a fetal position is oh man, it's fuck. I've never done crack, but I can imagine. You know what I mean? It's one of the best feelings in the world. One of my other favorite just fights in general to watch with ground and pound was Rory McDonald versus Che Mills. And like the damage that Rory did to this guy was like, it's actually a hard fight to watch. It was so violent. And that fight, I remember I watched that fight when I was like 17 or something like that, and it forever changed the way I looked at ground and pound. And I got to train with Rory and pick his brain. Now Rory McDonald helped my ground and pound. Like that's what he was known for. He was just nasty. Finished like high level fighters with ground and pound, and he's just a fucking demon on top.
He was. What's your favorite submission?
Fuck, that's hard. I think my favorite submission is probably a Darce choke. I love Darce chokes. I love like the intricacies of how, like, I feel like Darce choke is one of those chokes that's becoming more and more popular, but it's a choke that I've always been on because I find that it's available from a lot of different places. I love Darce choke. I also love high elbow guillotines. Like I fucking love getting that high elbow grip on someone, and like even from like a position where you just watch them go to their back because that's the only way to go, and then just following them into like a mount where you can like staple down, like use your shin to staple down their arm, get your knee above their head, and just like the torque that you can get on it is just so nasty, man. So nasty. I love high elbow guillotines.
Cool. I got one more question for you, and then I'll let you go because you've definitely given me enough of your time. And this question, let's look for like somewhat of a short answer because I feel like we could honestly do a whole episode on it. There's kind of a debate going on where like, if let's say I'm an MMA fighter and I need to train, I need to know multiple disciplines to be effective, right? We need wrestling, we need striking, we need jiu-jitsu. Do you think it's more important for an MMA fighter to just train MMA, or should they go into those individual disciplines and train them individually? Like, would it benefit an MMA fighter from doing grappling competitions, kickboxing competitions, training, going into wrestling and just doing wrestling or whatever? Or should they just train MMA to get better at the sport of MMA? If that's their goal is to get better at MMA. What's your opinion?
It's a non-negotiable. You have to do everything individually. It's a non-negotiable. Like an MMA class should be where you put it all together. If you have a horrible hip escape, if you have shitty defense with your boxing, if you're wrestling, you fucking just drive your head straight into the mat, you are not going to be an effective MMA fighter. It's actually like something I preach to my students after every class. Like I'll be running a class and then my MMA guys want to become MMA fighters. Then Josh Johnson comes up right behind me and one of the best kickboxers on the planet. And I see people like, oh yeah, I'm going to stop training now. You're telling me you want to fight in MMA? Get in his class right now. You're going to help me too because you're going to make my job easier because you're going to learn solid fundamentals and solid structure, right? That's like, I tell people all the time, even like in my classes, I have no ego. I believe I'm a great instructor. I'll tell people to go to your gym all the time. I tell, go do this. Go, you guys are wondering why I'm able to get this off. Go learn leg locks. I tell all the MMA guys, you may come across a guy that can checkmate you in wrestling. You have to know jiu-jitsu. You have, and if you're a boxer, okay, you like to stand and knock people out. What are you going to do if someone puts you on your back or someone pushes you into a fence? You have to know it. So to me, it's not even a debate. You have to do everything. I still go to pure boxing gyms. I still do just jiu-jitsu. I do just wrestling. It's literally a non-negotiable. It's not even a question, in my opinion.
Wicked. All right, man. Well, where can we find you, and where? How can we watch your next match?
Yeah, so my fight's December 4th, live on UFC Fight Pass. I'm on mostly. I'm actually just on Instagram at Team Gremlins. Other than that, I'm pretty easy to find. Just type in Jamie Siraj on Instagram. My fight is December 4th, live on UFC Fight Pass, and I'm sure I'll be putting some highlights out after I go take this belt, and
Are you the main event?
I am.
Fuck yeah, for the belt, right?
Yeah, for the belt, man.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much for coming to the show, Jamie. Man, it's been awesome talking to you again.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you too. Hey, and we'll train real quick, okay? After your fight and after you're all healed up.
100%, man.
Let's do it. Guys, I'm gonna leave Jamie's contact in the show notes. If you want to support the show, check out the links on the bottom. Everyday Jiu Jitsu Podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu Jitsu. Take care of you guys. Thanks.